Hey everyone, welcome to your daily update for Sol and BTC. Friday New York session is closed. Just watching the price creeping up at the moment, just to see. Be interesting to see how it closes today and leads into the weekend. Liquidity is kind of evening out on the daily, so we've sort of switched from it being more of a bias to the downside to becoming a little bit more even. So going into a weekend. That kind of means anything can happen, but we don't have a lot of big closes. Not today, not really even tomorrow. So it's more likely they're going to wait to somewhere around the 18th, 19th before there's any sort of big series of closes, and we might see something happen. But who knows? Who knows? Low liquidity weekends. We have bounced the daily trend, and we've just run into the daily hold, so that's kind of played out. We're inside of four day long on Sol as well, which is up to about 146.2 or 146.6, depending on how it bounces. And although it's quite fast for that to play out already. I think the last 4 or 5 day long we were in took 25 days during quiet time to play out. This one's been only probably 24 to 48 hours, and it's nearly there. So this might just be the 1 day move actually playing out. We might even pull back and then go back up again. It's there's still lots of time for that 4 day. So if we look at the 7-day liquidity, it's starting to even out a little bit on Bitcoin. Same on Sol, getting kind of groups to the upside and the downside. We've got liquidity everywhere we need to be, so it's just a matter of when, really. And if we look at the 30-day, 30 days still, biased to the downside. Yesterday and the day before, both days we've had pretty much the same type of intention at close, where they've just sort of pulled the price back and just crept under key levels. Like I sort of joked in the Discord another day where we've got 6 minutes to go and 60 cents, and it really just does come down to that. Like if they just push it up 60 cents and hit the close button for the day, then we'd be bouncing. But pushing it down 60 cents and hitting the close button just gives us a bit of a dip and then a pump, and just sideways cake building in the bigger scheme of things. Like it's a whole downtrend on the 15-minute, but really it's just a daily candle that's going up and down based on a close which didn't let it break out. The BitGet feed has frozen at 140, which is quite interesting because it did that thing yesterday where which we've seen a lot across exchanges. So we've seen this on Binance, we've seen this on Coinbase, saw it on another one the other day. I can't remember which one it was. And then what we've just seen on BitGet was yesterday the price just magically just dumped, whole candle missing, just went straight down, hit the 4-day entry, has gone all the way back up since. And then what you found last night is it dumped down again. Now the difference is it dumped down again last night along with every other exchange. So it's almost like sometimes these things just show us the future, and then they go back to where they should be, and then they drop down again. So it's or a pump to the upside, which I think was one we saw the other day where the price shot up to hit something, came all the way back down, but once again only did it on one exchange. The next thing you know, you could have just hit the long button and every other exchange just went up there. So yeah, seen some really funny stuff lately. Just kind of makes you wonder whether we seriously are living in some kind of simulation and how much of this stuff is real. But we can make money, so whatever. All right, let's have a look at these charts. So yeah, not a lot of closes. So we've got 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 on TradingView. We've got 1 and 2, which I think will be the only ones that really matter. So looking at Sol BTC, it's engulfing at the moment. It's back up above the 1 level of the range. It's never managed to get above that 15361 and hold. So the key levels really we're looking for on this today is to engulf the prior daily candle, which would be quite just nice sustainable price action, really. It means it's come down, it's done a retest, it's bounced back up. Next day could create an origin, in which case we might have a slightly different range targets. but I still quite like the range targets from the prior range, which hasn't got up and moved through its levels yet, because at least in that case, level 3 actually nicely lines up with the break level up here at 16071. So yeah, any kind of close over 15131, 15142 would be good. And then, of course, if it does have some kind of pump against other tokens like BTC before the end of the day, anything over that 15363 sort of area would be more bullish. And if they want to troll it, it's as easy as just pulling it back down underneath the opening of the candle here, and that means closing anything under 15131. Means we don't get an engulf. We're back inside the whole candle, and well, the chances then are we go down again. No trends shifting. We are technically breaking an interior, but we're still restricted by the exterior. So yeah, that's all we see there. Looks good at this stage, but a lot can change when you're talking such close numbers and an hour and a bit to go. Okay, let's have a look at the safety assets. So we may be looking here at a hard close of the break level. So if we get a yellow candle close up over the 67.82, so that's kind of bearish for risk assets. However, the wick is nice and long, so as long as that wick stays long, you'll get the interior trend break. It'll move to the top side, and then you'll have some resistance there. So you might then get a bit of a move up and a dump down, or a dump down and a pump up, but at least it's going to stay moving. It won't be so heavily compressed. It's rejected off the top side range trend. Yeah, there's not too much else going on inside that. There is an upside and a downside range in play. Looks like upside's currently winning, so got this in here. Yeah, so rejection off that. So as long as it doesn't close over 68.07 today, it's still failing to move up through the range. Resistance moves to the top side. Still under the range trend. Doesn't look like it's going to have a substantial break in either direction. Looking at that. So I guess we'll just have to see. But it does look like it can move. So, another pump up to whatever the more sort of local highs have been on altcoins is very possible. Plus a dump down to roughly whatever the lows were is also very possible. Now, if it closes blue, that's going to be a little different. We'll get a interior trend, quite steep though, so it'll be opening on the wrong side of it. It won't be a hard close of the break level, so that's kind of good. And if it closes down under that 67.8%, then it's effectively fallen back within the break level. And it may at that point continue down to try and get back underneath the interior trend. So that's kind of in the middle, really. Might just be a boring weekend looking at that, but we shall see. All right, let's have a look at the totals. And actually, I guess I should say not necessarily a boring weekend, but more a weekend where everything just moves together would probably be a better way of putting it. No substantial difference between risk assets and safety assets as far as dominance goes. May not be boring. Maybe just everything kind of stays about the same. Yep. So at this stage, totals is showing that same sort of possibility. Oh, I just got an alert. It looks like the BitGet chart's come unstuck. So it's gone back to being in line with everything else. Okay, so that's the Sol chart, by the way. We closed down, pushed down. Looks like we've met the minimum obligation here. Let's see. Yeah, we've met the minimum obligation. We've bounced back up. So we're not going to be changing anything to do with the downtrend. Maybe we get an extra support trend, or we get back a support trend. There was already kind of a trend there. It was a prior broken trend, which it seems to have recovered. So it's that one there. Now, if we close over 2.89 trillion, then we're still inside the range area. If we close over 2.91, that's a little bit more bullish, because it will probably want to have a go at what will become an origin level. So this this upper level here at 2.97 is going to become an origin level from a break level. And so, yeah, so if we close up above the 2.91, we might just get another push between the two levels. It's really just it's everything so far is just looking like another weekend bump with potentially just coming back down again. I would be a little bit more concerned that once this becomes an origin level on the daily, the next hit from it could be a bigger pullback, but it's yeah, again, just looks like it's kind of putting us in to go visit the highs again and maybe just come back to where we were again. Maybe one more range. Let's see. Okay, risk. Let's look at the risk. So between the 1 and the 1618, take BTC out of it, and we're between the 1618 and the 2. So yeah, the risk assets are kind of lagging, definitely still lagging. Looking like we're going to open on the wrong side of the trend unless we push up. We haven't gone all the way back up to the hold yet. So we haven't gone back to 101 yet either. There's definitely a lag going on with alts compared to BTC at the moment. But I'd expect that to actually catch up. So you might see a little bit more action coming into the altcoins in the next day or so. If it closes up over trend, so getting anything above 1. It's kind of the very early stages of 1.01. Really need more decimals on here. But if it gets up over that 1.01, or let's just say it closes back above the trend, then the chances are it'll just pump straight back up into that hold. May not break the hold, but at least we're not closing in between two levels like we did that day. That was fun. Up, down, back again. Right. Yeah, nothing else is really structurally changing. And yeah, are we creating an origin off the break? Yes, we are. Already created one above here. We are creating some decent resistances above on altcoins. So don't know whether they're going to be able to move up as easily as what BTC could at the moment. But the other side of it, though, is that these will become breakout levels. So, one daily candle, and that's a huge move, but one daily candle above that level, and your next break level and hold level are quite high up. Your hold level's already been tested. Your break level hasn't. So there's one of two things that's happening here. They're either done and dusted for alts, and they're going to start heading down, or they're doing this so that they can break out of it, which could give you a let's see if I can get a percentage thing going on here, which could give you a good 10% up in the total market if it gets over that level on the daily. So one of those two things is in play. Be interesting to see which one it is, but yeah, any closes over that 104 are going to be quite potent if they then have two origin levels to break out of. And the actual, if it moves origin to origin, which is pretty typical after it breaks one, then that's what's that, a 19% move in the alt market. Yeah, so this is it. This is either the top, or they're probably planning to go up 10 to 20%. Okay, let's have a look at Sol. Okie dokie. So looking on the lower time frame, so we had that dump down, swept all these lows. We've run into those higher time frame holds that we talked about, and then we're back at the top. So BitGet's come back online, but as you can see, they've got this wonderful little gap in here now. So I'm not might just use the BingX charts because they have pretty much the same type of smoothing and very similar way that they structure their charts as to what BitGet does. So yeah, we're underneath, going back underneath the range trend on the 15 minutes. So that's with an hour and a half to go. It's not an ideal place to be. You'd kind of want to be up above that, but this is still not a bad level to be closing. Right, let's have a look at the hourly. Yeah, hourly's coming from the top side. So not too much to see there. We haven't hit we've hit the daily hold targets, but we haven't hit the 4-day targets yet. Okay, and we are up inside the 4-hour range. So this will be the last 4-hour candle of the day. Closing over 145.977 would give you a bit of an indication that we're actually shifting up inside the 4-hour range. Everything is here to create this range. So we've got our origin level, which becomes an origin on the close of this candle, assuming it doesn't come back down and hit this lower break. So as long as we stay over 141.4 for the next hour and 35 minutes, then we're above trend, we have an origin, we have a full engulfment, and we're holding the one range level. So then it becomes, 145.9 and 149.5 and 153 and 156. And there is really good confluence with that 4-hour range going all the way up there to that 156. So, but we only our short-term liquidity is more up to about this 150 area. So it may not just be one of those, random candles that just pumps all the way to the top, but close over that 145.977. That would be the ideal one. I'll just see how that looks on the BitGet chart. Okay, so the 4-hour feed has just jumped from all the way down there to all the way up there. So that means that would be our chart. Let's see. Let's get rid of some of that. Right. Yeah, same levels, 145.977. Yeah. Now well, just goes to show you can use BingX or BitGet. Charts work about the same. All right, let's have a look at the daily. So this was the trade, although it was quite a boring, slow trade, really. We opened down here, we hit the trend, we have a hold. So if you've watched any of these videos, it's just one of the simplest types of trades you're going to run into, which is basically you have a hold, you have a trend, you move between the two of them. If you'd gone up first into the hold, you would have probably come down. And if you go down first, you typically go up. So just got to wait for one side to trigger. So any kind of close, let's see, we've got a daily range, which we've broken and hard closed. So that's kind of done. Got another one, could be creating from here. So for the daily range to become bullish, really it's a close over that 148.086, or it could simply close over that 146.628. That would also be quite bullish. Anything up over the trend, because if it actually gets up and over top of that downtrend, it will also then be back on top of that support trend. So being up over top of the downtrend isn't really all that bullish, because it can always just not break it, come back down. But if it's above the support trend, then it's more likely to be able to push up, which then leads to a break of the downtrend. So kind of just looking a couple steps ahead, really. So yeah, anything up there would be quite bullish. And of course, where it is now or lower, it's still in a place where it could, let's see, possibilities would be it opens under the trends, rejects back down again, ends up stuck in this little wedge here. Or it could just be really irritating and go up, close at about 145.3. That would be a a great weekend incoming, and just get stuck between the cross of the trends basically, which means any push up and push down would just probably come back to the same place. So that's what we're looking at there. Let's have a look at BTC. I actually feel like I'm half awake today. Let's before we look at BTC, let's have a look at these other timeframes, which aren't really that many, but so just to recap, this is the 4-day hold that we've bounced off, and we're just heading back up to that sort of 146.2 or 146.644. Now this, as a time frame, this closes today. If we were to look at the normal trading view chart, but there's some real funky stuff going on. And a lot of these timeframes, the dates that they're closing on TradingView are not the dates that they're closing. And sometimes they are, like the 2-day, like the 1 day is always going to work because you can't really stuff up when a 1-day close changes. The 2-day and the 3-day are lining up at the moment, and the 4-day isn't. So it's just kind of weird. But basically, what we're going to see if we look at TradingView is we're going to see a trend break, and we're going to see a trend move to the top side. We're going to open either just above or just below that at the moment. So like if we were to go up to around the 146s, then we are technically opening up on top of the trend. The thing is that we're not really opening up on top of the trend because we're also not really closing. So it's kind of a bit of a hard thing to say whether this trend break is actually going to go anywhere or whether it's just going to revert back down, because even if it breaks the trend from this candle where we're at and we move to the top side there, even if it's up on top of that trend, it's potentially still underneath the actual range resistance because the candle actually opened under the range resistance. So yeah, I'd just keep an eye around the 146. If we hit the 146 and start to pull back, then the trend break is probably just going to end up in a reversal. So looking at what actual closes do we have today? We've got, oops, definitely half awake today. Did watch a good movie though. All right, where are we? Okay, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. Okay. Right, so 2-day. We're not hard closing any of the break levels. We're still underneath. So really we want to see a close up over 146.853 if we want that to be a good way to kick off the next candle. In the scheme of things, this really does look like it's trying to just push its way up here to 150. So we've had that almost perfect bounce. You can kind of see if you look really closely the wick inside the wick inside the wick, or the wick inside the candle, I should say, which is a bit of a... Hopefully this stuff will be available for everybody soon, but there's discussions just kicked off inside the Discord admin channel about this. But see this wick inside here, which has come back down to here, down to the 145, sorry, 140.145. So this candle should be trying to push its way through to this now, to the 150.699. And I mean, that's entirely possible because that just, it completes the 4-day long that we know is in play. It's just a range move on the 2-day, which has been pending for a while. And it gets it up above the break level, which has already been hit. Now, if it doesn't do that in the next hour and 26 minutes, then the next candle will be opening under the break level regardless. So then a push up to the range level could act as resistance, as well as the fact that it's come from the wrong side of the break level, which means it could end up just coming back down. So, but this thing is just itching to go to 160. Just, it's a win. Okay. Right. 4-day we kind of covered. Let's look at 8. And there's not much to be seen on the 8-day. It's a trend break. Trend will move to the top side of the candle. If the price is over that 146.853, so it seems like the confluence here is pretty much 146.853 or above is going to be better, because it means we're above break levels, and it's within the realms of the ranges that are in play. So this is a bit of a, obviously a bigger range, older range, but this is trying to push the price from 136.872 above 147, and if it can get above 147, then 158, 169, it's all there. And if it gets a proper break of trend, which I'd have to check out when the next 8-day candle closes according to the left-hand side here, but if this thing can get a proper break of trend, then the next hold level's all the way up here at 176 to 186. It actually just looks like it's ready to pop. It's hard to be bearish looking at that. It's going to go down eventually because of the really big holds that were up inside, like the 3-month and the 4-month, and the fact we've just hit a 6-month resistance on the totals, but it's just hard to be bearish when you look at something like that. Okay. And oh, we got our arrow. So don't think there's too much to say here. 16 days probably, what is it, a break a trend? Yeah, 16 days to break a trend. But I don't know if that really matters all that much, given that it's already kind of closed, it's already gone and hit the range level. It's just a case of what comes next. So that's doesn't really have a target either for that trend break. Arguably it would be targeting the highs, but that's pretty unlikely. So yeah, not too much there. So definitely, to recap, the price already looks like it's trying to work its way up. It's just doing it in a really slow manner because it's getting stuck with stupid restrictive closes. So just like when the prior 2-day candle closed, this is what I mean by that 60-cent difference. Closing just under the break level versus closing just above just gets in its way and stops it from going up to 150, and it just kind of keeps it bouncing around. Now we basically need another 2-day yellow candle anyway, regardless, at this point, to then hard close these lower levels, because that's a blue candle in there, and that's a blue candle over there. So either way, we need kind of like another yellow candle to hard close the levels, and then after that, they are open to retest. So, and we still haven't retested these lower levels, so there is definitely the ability for some big dump when this thing loses trend. At the moment, it's holding trend. That's kind of all that matters. Okay, let's now have a look at BTC. Now, looking at the lower time frame, the 1 hour just looks to be stuck below trend, below break level. It's creating, yeah, it's creating a little origin level there. With only 1 hour and 20 minutes to go in the day, it's ideally got to be up above that 95.758 level if you want to see anything as of a decent move based on that hourly. The 4 hour completed the range to the upside. It's just fallen back in. That's not bearish, that's holding the top part of the prior range. But unless it starts to break up and out of this 196, etc., then you don't see that 4 hour being completely bullish either. There's not long to go in the day too, so there's just not much of a chance of this actually becoming a super bullish close for BTC. We go on the daily. So the daily's holding the range, but it's under the trend. Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting close, this one. It's creating an origin at the 96.607. Okay, so what this is saying, and the reason why this is pretty hard to read, is on one hand you've got this level here at 96.607 being converted to an origin level today, so you could expect some kind of push into that and then a rejection off that. Where's that brush tool? So we go up here and then we have some kind of bigger rejection. And if we look down lower and we go, well, why would we have a bigger rejection? Well, we've got this area down here at around 93 that has been hard closed, hasn't been retested. We have retested this break level here, but not quite the origin below it. So it's kind of leaving some things behind. This 94 origin in here hasn't retested that, but it has hard closed it. So what's that? That's 94.030, and then you got 93.050. Okay, so it looks like we're setting up an origin topside, and we've got retests pending for the ones below. So that's going to mean something like there to there is going to become the box, and we're probably going to travel between them, which could then complete all the retests to the low side, as well as that first touch rejection of the origin level on the top side. So the question is, do we go down first or up first? If we stay under the trend and we go down first, then definitely worth adding to longs, TPing at the first TP at the trend, just in case we don't get back over it, and then aim for the origin level at the top there. And if we go up first, well, depends on when it does it. If it goes up first thing in the day, because we'll have a shift of that interior trend. Yeah, so it might push up first thing in the day, possible, hit the rejection, come back down, and then could even keep going down to do the retests. You can kind of see, like, if we do end up opening a candle in this little wedge between the downtrend and the shifted uptrend, how we could end up with like a doji by the time we close tomorrow. So just one of those, we go in both directions and then end up back where we started. Very much sounds in line with some of what we've seen when we were looking at the totals earlier today. So that's a possibility. Now the other possibility, of course, is that it doesn't do the retest. It leaves those for later because we all know that it's going to dump back down at some point, and maybe we do just go up. And if we manage to get a close up above here, then we keep going up, because the actual range that this price is in, other than being stuck in a bunch of heap of trends and all this interior, all this stuff is tradable stuff, but what we're doing in the bigger picture of the daily is we're trying to move from here up to here. That's what we're trying to do. That'll take us up to the 100K mark, 101K mark. And of course, all this other stuff in between is going to be why price might go down and up, or it might go up and then down. Like all these different levels, range trends, backside reverse trends. It breaks the range trend, hits the origin level, comes back down, blah, blah, blah. This is how price moves, but just in the scheme of the bigger picture, what it's trying to do is it's trying to move from here up to here. And once it's done that, that could be game over, because that's a pivot. So, pivot on a daily, if it can get over the pivot on a daily, then it's going to want to move up to here. Or it's going to reject the pivot on the daily, and that is the end of your dead cat bounce. And then it will start moving in the opposite direction between all these different levels until it goes and finds some new low. So keep an eye on that. Right. What are the closes we had today? BTC. Okay, so 2-day close. Yeah, so the 2-day kind of backs up that price action on the 1-day. It's just a lot simpler and cleaner when you look at it on a 2-day chart. We are not hard closing anything, which means we could dip back down. Yeah, really, for the 2-day to be bullish, it has to get up over 96.943. That would be really weird by the end of the day, just given that lower time frame price structure. It would be just a out of the blue pump in the next hour, which is pretty unlikely. So what does that mean? Well, it means we're closing back under a range level. We haven't hard closed any of these lower levels, although we are bouncing off the origin. I mean, this thing is going to want to come back up to this 99.541 level, but structurally it looks like it's in rejection, so it'd be pretty weird for that thing just to open a candle and go up to that level. It's more likely that it's going to have some down and then some up, or some up, then some down, then some up, but just opening and going straight up would be a bit weird. Okay. There was a prior broken trend through there though, so I wouldn't completely disregard it, because it is going to open the next candle above that trend, so it might just bounce off that. Okay. 4-day. So 4-day BTC is definitely a pretty bullish looking candle. Now, so this candle is opened above the 96.454, and it doesn't actually close on the exchanges today. It hasn't hit the hold level technically, because it's bouncing off the break level. It hasn't hard closed anything. So there is still the possibility for this candle, which is in motion, to come down, hit that 93.708 area, and then bounce back up. And there's probably a few days before this actually closes on the exchange. Now over here, if we sort of look at what that would mean on TradingView, it's a trend break. So could that push up? Absolutely. The wick on the top of the candle is too long, so when that trend moves, it's going to be on the top side. So if we do this, see it's going to be on the top side, so it's going to be resistance. So yeah, maybe you get a push back up and then a push down. And if we compare that over here, the push down could just be to that 93,708 level before it gives the bounce back up. Yeah, so it looks like it's kind of opening in the middle. And if it plays out as per what we see over here on TradingView, then that's going to mean a push up to trend and then a rejection down. And there's nothing really to support it over here if we look at it from this perspective, apart from this hold level that's all the way down here at 88.5. But I don't think it would have to go there because it's got this, which you don't know is there. So 93.7 or below, I'd be looking for some kind of bounce on this if it rejects off that trend. Okay. Not much looking at there. Not a break of trend. Okay. And then this is already very, very bullish. We've got the higher, or the 16-day exchange view has already closed its last candle up inside this 94,341. It's already bouncing off the 94,341. And it's probably got a long time before they consider this closed. So it closes over here today, and that doesn't really mean all that much because it's not really a trend break. There's kind of a nothing close. It's up inside a prior range, which would have been from back here. So maybe there's something for getting a close over 95.929, which might enable that to start to push a bit higher, but it already looks like it's got a target of 100 anyway. Okay. That's it for BTC. Yeah, so not a lot of closes today. Not a huge amount of important stuff. Seems to be setting things that seem to be getting set up for a bit of a push to the upside and then a sweep back to the downside, or vice versa. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a super exciting weekend looking at it until we see some of the bigger closes coming later. And let's have a look at how these others are closing out for the week. Well, Tesla back under the support trend, tapping the origin level again. Under the resistance trend, slightly above the range trend. Never quite revisited that 448.25 origin, so it hasn't actually rejected off it. Yeah, it's either going to open under trend again and keep pushing down, or it's going to open above trend and push up. I guess we won't know the answer to that one until Monday. Have a look at that weekly. How's that ended up panning out? Yeah, so the weekly close looks like it's going to create a hold level. It's not exactly the world's biggest hold level. It's still inside the actual bigger weekly range. And the trend will shift to the bottom side, so it will be a trend break to the downside. Looks like it can open in between the range trend, the horizontal level with the hold level all the way down lower. So it should make for an interesting open to the week. If it was to push up through the resistance and then hit the hold and then push back down, it runs into support pretty quickly. So I don't think there's too much really to say about this unless it starts to close under this 429 level and ends up back inside the hold. But at this stage, it's a pretty compact little week. Micro strategy. Well, it opened above the trend. This is most likely just heading back up. I'd be pretty surprised if this doesn't end up either pre-market or opening next week, and then pushes up into this candle. One of the things I suppose you got to be careful of with this whole open close market stuff is pre-market, this could come all the way back up into that hold and then reject off it, and then by the time the market opens, it could already be on its way back down. But it's what this hasn't done yet is it hasn't bounced the trend properly to the hold, so I'd still be expecting that to open and travel up a little bit more. And how's that weekly closing out? It's not a bad looking weekly at all. So that's got here. So we got possible weekly range. It might get it up and out of that 170s and then through the various levels there. At least you'd expect this thing to hit the 180 again and then possibly test the pivot there at 197, which roughly lines up with that weekly break level. So that's it's not a bad weekly close, unless they push it down in post-market by an extra few bucks and get it underneath that 170. So yeah, that's not so bad. And then that 230 would be the retest of that upper broken range. Yeah, not bad. ASTER's still got 2 weeks to go. Sorry, 2 days to go on the weekly. Still surprised this thing hasn't come up here and tested 81 or 90. But it's got a couple of days. Okay, that's it for today. So short term, just looking for what happens around that 146.2 to 146.6 area on Sol, and looking to see what happens around that 96 to 98 level on BTC for maybe rejections on the shorter term, but targets to the upside still look pretty good. You know, there's there's a lot of stuff in play, you know, pushing those prices up that you've seen today, whether it's 150, 156, 161. Short-term liquidity makes that 150 target look pretty easy right now for Sol, and we've got short-term liquidity all the way up to 100,600 so on BTC. So you never know. Maybe we get a weekend pump out of nowhere and then a full retracement next week. But see how it closes. See if they pump it all up in the next hour, and yeah, then we'll just see what the weekend brings, and I'll just take my TPs at the levels, and if it goes higher, so be it. Catch you later. Bye.